Why, thank you. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Daryl.
I promise to run the wall next. So, yeah, she's missing the study. I've been calling it stories up by for the fields of play because it's just like a cashing out. But it does represent what I'm trying to do. So I'll cover that. And then there's a round table, but I heard somebody was sold out. It's round table 1 to 2 where it's going to dig a little deeper. But we're going to do a high level overview here. You can find a lot of the stuff online. I've been posting stuff. Anyways, so a little bit about me. I've heard email on the Integrated Technology Center. I'm a professor there. I ran that program for 17 years. God.
I didn't have that exciting.
And then in 2024, I founded a Play Story Press. I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's open community publishing consortium, and I also founded Well Played, an initiative, a publishing initiative that for folks on the section. You can find me there.
Oh, yeah, I'm
All right, so I started this study in 2024. It's a qualitative study because Paul's rule, rule. No, the exploratory qualitative study on the international field of play. I'm really curious through in-depth interviews, questionnaire, and community participation to really get around the diverse, broad ideas of what play is and lines, and it just worked. I'm going qualitative. I'm looking for like the threads, the themes, the patterns, commonalities that's coming out of this. And I was going broad too, trying to find people from all over education, industry, professional fields, foundations, implement groups. Somebody who talked to me, I tried to perfect. So I had seen really great groups, including engaged change and support. Most of that support was helping me get in touch with their community to sort of get involvement. Really, really successful. This is a huge thank you to everybody involved in Connecting Learning Alliance, to Global Game Events, International Game Development Association, Higher Education Video Game Alliance, NDK, the Pittsburgh Remake Learning Initiative, and the Pittsburgh Tech Council.
Yep.
I did a questionnaire first. I thought this looks, I'll do a questionnaire, a couple hundred, but it was long form questions. So a lot of the feedback is they start coming in. Oh man, it's a lot of work. So there. But I did get 116 responses. I was doing 16 questions about, roughly like where you work, how long you've been there, what are your role responsibilities, your area, the field you feel like you work in, what are the strategies you bring into your work, the tools you use, and connections and interests that you find in so like you feel it in your work. That was what I sort of focused on. And then I was like, I'll do a couple dozen interviews. I ended up interviewing 176 people because people kept offering, and you all are amazing. And then a lot of you are in here. And I was just telling like Greg, I'm slowly working my way through, and I'm having this weird mental thing where I read Greg's interview, and at the end of the night, I'm like, so I just talked to Greg. But that was last summer. I tried to keep him at 30 minutes. Some people went like an hour.
I can make it too guilty there.
I was trying to be very open-ended in conversation. I was not trying to set an agenda. I was really trying to get people to share their stories. The questions were very general. I asked people to introduce themselves, share the story of how they life work or introduced to play, and then what they were excited about and work that the work that they were seeing. So I really kind of just see what happens. So my process was for the questionnaire, I used G-Form. I used Zoom to record and transcribe interviews, which bizarrely, Zoom's transcription is good enough. You can really get some stuff. I've been using Atlas CI for analysis. It's one of those weird, like I've been talking to a couple of my user interface people. I just knew how to use the tool, but then I opened it up, which I go, that's just really good design. So I was doing it, although I just found out it's really crappy about analyzing surveys. And I got a couple people up confirming that wasn't my fault. Like, no, that's going to do a per survey. So what I was looking for in terms of the analysis, as I was digging into these interviews, and they were amazing. I was looking for really good quotes for pithy or like really moving, and that's coding now towards like I had like a coding mission. So it's kind of this is somebody talking about improv in life, like about their childhood. So I was really at that. I was also what Atlas calls memos, but for me in my head was split notes. This is an interview where somebody said that it changed or like and I'm gonna call him Atlas 69 here, Eric Jamel. Somebody I interviewed when I was talking to him and I asked him if there was anything that could be improved. He really gave this eloquent answer. Like, hey, talking about improvement, because I want to encourage people to try different things, try more things. He focused more on excitement and thing as a focus for what he was trying to do. And I was I'm like really stuck, so I can do that. And then I've been doing really reflective in my notes, and then I see her here in Emily with me from NYU Stearns. Stearns has really supported me letting Emily work with me. So she's been going through helping clean up the interviews, but also like she's saying these wonderful like notes, so her thoughts and my thoughts, really adding that in analysis of what's going on. So here's the coding, and so like this is I feel work cluster what people talk about the most of the my coding. So you get like a nice little cluster here. Anybody that wants to have show these slides. But you see, like, a lot of culture came up, a lot of play, like improv and AI came up as things to be worried about, but also opportunity to do stuff. From the interviews, these are just to give general something I thought would be fun to share. What people seem to talk about the most, less about coding, is most came up in interviews. So a lot of people say thing when they're talking in the environment. Because it's a nice generic catchword, just like John could fill it. But your game came up a lot. So you see the sense that people really focused on stuff like that. Questionnaire, somewhat overlap. I'm working on the overlap now, but this sort of came up. It was more directed toward where are you and what you're doing as opposed to a story. But this is where a lot of people, how the organization, how they collaborate, we just get a sense where they're going. And then the progress that's gone to date. I started this in 2024. I stopped scheduling interviews like in September of 2024 because I was booked out to November, and I said, oh my God, I thought I was just doesn't, but you all were amazing. So I kept going, but that was the time to reason. COVID. That took me to like March. And so really now that I've got them coded up, digging back in, going threads and themes. It's I started looking at the more collaborative journey with participants and not just with their interviewees. I'm asking them for input, and I'm going to do something that somebody who's a researcher might disagree with. You'll care not to. I'm less concerned about verbatim capture what happened in the interview and more about trying to get at the things somebody was trying to share. So I'm editing what they're saying to get it to capture a point. And some people are great, like are really pithy, go, oh yeah, it's a great point Greg made, exactly about why he likes living in New York. And then some people, I'm going to say like GMG, people at GMG, he talks in friggin' books. He went over an hour. And I didn't say anything. I just said, Jim, he said, that was it. I go to the gym for now. And it was it's a gym show, but it's a great show. But it's really interesting kind of go, well, from here to here, he's talking about, literacy. So instead of like trying to catch for verbatim, I just kind of wish together. And that's his thoughts on literacy. And then I share it with Jim. Are you okay with this? So it's really been inviting them to like make sure that I capture what they feel, is the thought they were trying to express. And this one's been fascinating to me is as I'm starting, it's almost like I'm making collage of the interviews. As quotes get together in relationship to each other, the meanings change, and grow and enrich, and it's blowing my mind. So like everybody who's been participating has been very generous with their time and their expertise, and they're putting up these, sending out monthly updates, going, I'm making progress. And they're sharing their ideas and their perspectives, and so I want to sort of like honor that and make the most of that. So it's gone more slowly than I thought, because I started going in and going like, well, if I'm panning for gold, I was sort of doing this thing where, well, it's there, seal there. I know it's in there, the slide. So openness has been my overall methodology. I didn't share upfront definition of play. I didn't want to constrain anybody. I wanted somebody to go, well, I feel at my worst. Like, well, I'll share app. And what was awesome about that is I ended up talking to like athletes, musicians, game designers, psychologists, theater people, and creative writers, like children's authors, people from museums. So you just see this one perspective people want to feel like new work is like one of my life. Here's how. So that was really wonderful to keep it open. And I felt like it fostered more discussion. People continued sharing as I've been sharing progress. And it's made for a lot of surprises, which I like. So trying to be open to that and sort of like get all the perspectives of stories shared and share that as an amalgamation more than me going like I have an agenda. That everything into it. So I mean, a little. A lot of what came out of these interviews, several people say kind of listen to other people. And I said, oh, God, these are Zoom, and like some of the audio's not great, but sure, let me ask it. So everybody said, why not? So I've been I'm working with an organization who was 100% in, and then their funding got cut, as probably heard this happening in the world. And so they're still in, but now it's just like, hold on, we're trying to figure things out. Because it's an organization that if we get it, they're going to work with underrepresented, underserved teams to collaborate to figure out how learning the skills of making a podcast by using the corpus of the interviews to figure out ways to pull out the thread. So learn critical thinking skills and the media skills and all that. Love to do this, get teams doing this. And then, long story short, a colleague of mine from Carnegie Mellon, who is now at the Singapore Management University, found out from his professor at CMU that I was doing this study. He reached out, I love to play. I'm at Singapore Management University. Could I do something? But we were really quantitative. And he had met another colleague here who's a PhD student that connected him with Emily, a woman named Yeshi Park Roberts. And they had met at a business conference, and they're the only people giving presentations about play at a business conference. So they stood out. I noticed. And so they have asked if they could do quantitative analysis of the interviews. And again, I wanted to honor like interviewees, so I asked. He's like, "Sure, why not?" So I'm like, I'd rather do another interview. So some podcast people were like, "Could I do an interview knowing it's going to be a podcast?" It was your edit. So I'm asking people if they'd like to continue participating in these different ways. Most everybody's saying yes. Some with qualification, some with both. But the idea for me is relationship with the interviewees, sport collaboratives. I was, you gave me something now. It's mine to, toil with. So it's been fun learning how to grow that way too. And it's coming together as a cinematic oral history in my head. And what I mean by that is I'm using the coding. So I'm like, a lot of people talk about improv. So let's get a really good context of why hip-hop seems to be important. And then pull quote from it, pull quote from it, looking at what people are saying, putting that together as improv. And that's where the magic starts coming. For me, it feels like they're in conversation with each other. And then this gives me goosebumps. Going back to classic literature, I'm looking at their books, kind of like, would it be like Pen Gold in some of the book? Using their assisting Mahalayan flow. I'm like, here's a good quote from there. I'll put that in. So it feels like there's this huge conversation happening amongst the cited literature and our conversations, and it's just amazing. So I can't wait to share it. I think not. So like I'm really using threads and the topics coming out, seeing all the patterns and the idea sharing. It's just, I'm so excited. Like it's really coming together. I'm starting to think of it as like a daily reader where it'll be sections that probably be better definitive out of it's supposed to read it front to back. Because they'll have that ability to go through it. And then here's how I sort of try to get the perspectives that are being shared. I go through the codings. Like I'll keep picking on them. People say improv, so I can look at the codings and I can see all the quotes. I'm like, that's good. I'm just wanting to get a sexuality because it's actually improv. And at the same time, I'll flip it and go, I already read everything Rachel said. And really go through it. Try to get all the gold out of Rachel that I do. And that was my goal. And then like taking those quotes and apply these themes throughout. And I've actually found as like going back and forth and doing a little bit more of the latter because there's so much good stuff. And all, like I can't tell you how many interviewees is like, I want to get you something useful. And literally nothing's not useful. Like it's just an amazing the quality of thought and the generosity. But it's sort of like as I'm pulling all that stuff together, like sharing stuff. And I like people that like a lot of people talk about their childhood. And I'm just going to pick up something to take you. Ask Stephanie about her.
Yeah, tough.
She had an amazing job, and but a lot of us did. And so, like, looking at that, pulling that back out, really just trying to, like, honor and make the most of the expertise and experiences shared really happened. And then really trying to put all the meanings and relationship to each other. That's where it's sort of like this weird collage of our thoughts, ideas, and between my thoughts, and Emily's thoughts, and looking at the side of the literature, getting a contextualization and commentary. So that's kind of how it's shaping up. And like I said, it's amalgamation. It's hard to, a lot of people talked about music and some of the most moving passages are just sort of like the idea of sitting down with somebody you haven't played with before, playing music together and how that takes you somewhere unexpected and new and amazing. And like feels like the essence of play. And so it's hard for me to, like, I feel like it's sort of like this symphony of all these perspectives, melody and harmony, but a lot of thought theory too. So it's like this wonderful amalgamation of all these things, and that it's going to give us a sense of play. More than usual. I believe play is X, Y, and Z, but not this, but this. This play is really ambiguous and elusive and mercurial and awesome. So next steps for me, I'm drafting as we speak, working on the interviews. I am actually, because of that, my podcast, I'm still starting to book new interviews, not necessarily for this, but just because I'm very curious to continue. Like, this was so instant. My wife was like, you come downstairs with inspiration and hope every time you have an interview. And I was like, how do I keep this quick? It's stuff. like selfish. I like these conversations, so I'm gonna bring that back up, think about ways to share, and try to live that improv philosophy, like just like being open to where like it's sort of manifest, and I'm like trying to follow it asleep. And I mentioned Play Story Press. The Play Story Press was inspired by this study. I was doing this study while I was on sabbatical, and I was like, man, people make this community so good. How can I? So a lot of you know I founded ETC Press 2 decades ago for CMU, and while I was on sabbatical, I'm like, well, how are we going to evolve the press? And I got this idea of like, we make the press more of the community, run with the community. And so CMU was very supportive of this idea. The community was very supportive. So I founded it into 2024. It's like for up by and for the field, dive in open access, active and publishing. That means no fees for authors working with us, and there's always free for readers to download. We do sell print copies, and we're really curious about sharing ideas that have impact and significance in our society. It gives us this wonderful breadth. Like anybody who wants to talk about stories that play in their life and how they're applied. Really broad and diverse, just like the interviews. Could be any of these studies, entertainment, narrative, media studies, social studies, games, technology, health and enjoyment, wellness, education and learning, design, development. Like we're ready to take it on. And we just want to continue growing the quality of scholarship in the field. It's like peer-reviewed work, just general audience, where we write, we want to be conversational, like we support research and white papers. We're curious about theory and practice. And like I said, it's a hopefully consortium, and it's over 2,000 other nonprofits. How we support this part of the consortium where they inform what we're doing with the press. And then we have 2 editorial advisories that really help us direction on what we're doing. It's probably 48 different people, half of them for the press in general, half for Well Played at those initiatives. We also have partners like Site Guidance. We have other organizations that we are partnering with that to collaborate on how they publish what they're publishing, so that we can share and sort of take on some of the work doing that. People share their work out. So we publish stuff for other organizations, whether it's conferences, books. We're doing that. And then we have a society where certain organizations like Shell Games perform the Games for Change, join where they're donating money and time and expertise and help support the foundation so that we keep, like, I joke, when you're doing open access publishing, your job is to lose the least amount of money. Because it's really, when there's free download, you put it. But we really believe in that type of outreach and influence is more important than, you'll get some royalties. And we really offer forward under HTC Press, it's 10%, under Play Story Press, it's 70% to the authors. And, that's a dinner maybe. So anyways, that's Play Story Press. So Playful Stories, I got this, oh my God. Just so you know, in case you're getting a talk, I changed this slide yesterday. And I was like, I'll be able to tell if they've actually used the thing they added. They let me have access to the G drive yesterday, so I was like, I'll put this new one in. See if it's there. I can make up for this. But this blew my mind. The term ludicrous, playful story. I was looking through the side of literature, went back to my first book, which is called Stories in Between. That was first published in 2008, and we just re-released it through Play Story Press. It was based on my dissertation. That was completed in 2001. And in that, I have this theory that I try to argue for, that humans are like homo ludens, and we're very, pre-linguistically, we learn the world through play, and then we learn language, and it messes us up, and we become homo narrans, and we start telling stories about how we learn through play. So in this dissertation I wrote 24 years ago, I was talking about playful stories. I'm like, what the hell? I remember that. So it's like, I've been thinking about this a lot. So it's really manifesting for me. It's about creative problem solving, is try to think of ways to do stuff. I'm really pushing on that with CI, like the ebb and flow of ideas coming, the inspiration I've gotten from the people who I've talked to, and sort of like the community just in general as they've heard about it, and kind of providing support and access. And I don't want to go too far, but it's giving me hope. Like, depending on no matter what perspective you have, we're living in interesting times. Maybe a dumpster fire. And I feel like the only way we're going to get out of it is through play. If we can talk together, create new ideas in ways we hadn't before, we can overturn stuff. We can make a difference. I think the change is going to come from that. And it's like, I was joking with Dave Fortuna yesterday. You know how that sort of axiom where you say something is everything and really something is nothing? Play really is everything. Like I come to my wife, oh my God, you're saying this. And I'm like, that's really, really weird. It is. And so this thing I always talk to our students coming from like the idea of playful, and how hope and change should happen through play with each other is I'd always say like, I'm gonna give you this tip and it's gonna change your life. And it was, all right, tell just be nice. And you'll stand out. I mean, that's how those bars. Be just nice and say thank you. People will remember you. And they're still like, okay, whatever, I'll do that. I'm like, look, I've had 2,000 alums now, and maybe 2 dozen keep in touch. They're all like, people with the 2 dozen keep in touch, I remember. So when they ask for a reference, I'm like, oh, sure, I'm right. But when like somebody asks me, I'm like, who are you? You study with me earlier? It's like I said, and then I like somebody posted this great post out, and just care about each other, care about the work you're doing, like commit to an idea. Because sometimes those shoes are like, I'm gonna play my cards close to my bet, I hedge my bets in case you think this is stupid. I'm like, I'll just like care about what you're passionate about. And so I feel like that's a big part of play too, is you commit to the idea, commit to the bit, you're serving the narrative. We're excited. So like that's for me where we're going with this. And like I said, we're gonna have an hour. My thing for the hour is like letting us share ideas around the stories that outweigh matters to us and for our perspective. Just So that's it. Culture one.
With this.
And you can find it like that placeforhis.org will take you to the study online. Stuff.
What about our time study?
The podcast hasn't happened yet because of the funding that organization lost. So we have it already. I'm just waiting, I'm like, I totally understand. It's a hard time right now. Like I was talking to her, I lost $2 million this year. I'm like, whoa, that was a waste of money. So why? Because you got shorter hours. I'm like, this is why. So
It happened.
I guess.
So,
Any questions?
it's over.
Go ahead.
So that's the way it's all like that.
Wow.
It's something very awesome.
So she asked about examples for play story preps. Yes. I'll give you some, I'll plug, like Rachel is the editor-in-chief basically of a series of books called The Zeitgeist of Pop Culture. So it looks at pop culture from a psychological and social perspective. Wonderful books from games like Last of Us, Show, which is an albeit, and we're working on a. So the lawyers have it. So so there's a whole bunch of books there, like the Well Played series. There's some of the other great new books that we've done recently. Oh, there's a wonderful one. So they was from which Garrett. 51 tabletop games, and like this was like if you go on everything's free for download. But, so there's a lot of game theory. So published several board games. There's a wonderful one that we helped publish where we got funding now to make it, where a friend of our colleague of mine who's a social scientist who works with poverty and works, basically our whole stuff like helping people with poverty. And like right now, this just in hard because her expertise is in immigration and refugees. And it's tough. And she made a board game just on her own. She's not a game designer. She's a social worker around what she calls these fires. And help people understand. So we helped publish that board. So we played it. I let them the book. The shitty explains that this is all punch. All for it.
This is how it's place it. Like stay around
The fight. Little bits. Any other questions?
Good.
Come on, Sean. One more.
No. I recently to the violent advice about to build up some streets to size of that.
Most surprising thing. All right.
There's the 10.
I think I kind of knew. I think the thing that surprised me is I was trying to get some ringers because I thought improv was really important. And so many talk about it. More than I was watching, I'm going to make sure I interview so-and-so because I know that you get a problem, And then I think the other thing that sort of surprised me is that sort of plays as how there's more commonalities and differences. And sadly, it's sort of like it gives me hope because I give this other talk around like collaboration, and a big part of it is like people suck, and I also will put can in there just to be nice. But I was like, no, we're not great, and but get together to do something. We can do things that are just magical, and like this study sort of made me go, all right, there's some, I feel better upwards. That really goes at the time. Say, pandemic where I started thinking about this, and just, man, this is a hard time on Tuesday that I like see. So that was a side effect of it. It's not gonna be good, but it's been base.
Right.
Here's a sort of a flag for it, clean.
No, I was so surprised. I was surprised by how much more people delivered. I think it'll be good. Oh my god! So some. I don't know. Like say all. It is. Anyways, but yeah, I think that was the thing. All right, I think it's lunch. Thanks for all the attention.